Welcome back. You're still watching Invest Africa. Tonight we're talking about what it will take to build Africa. Remember that you can be a part of this conversation. You can tweet us at CNBC Africa using the hashtag Invest Africa. Still with me, my guests in Lagos, Demola Akindolire. He is the General Manager at Alpha Mead Property Development. And in Nairobi, I'm joined by Andrew Mandera. He is the Chairman of the Institute of Quantity Surveyors of Kenya. Let's go back to Kenya. Andrew, as the chairman of a quantity surveying entity, give us a sense of the quality of construction. What are the major trends coming out?
Quality has been quite a challenge in this country, and there have been several factors that have been contributing to that. Mainly, the first major issue is that quality management in construction has not been taken as seriously as quality management in industry, such that you find most contractors did not have any quality standards. That has been a major challenge. Secondly, there's been a challenge of training for skilled laborers or workers, as it were, where you find that there's been a clamor for almost everybody who finishes high school to go to university, so to be up at professional level, and we tended to have neglected this middle class level, where we would have gotten technicians who would be good managers and supervisors and the actual technical operators. That has been also a challenge. There's also another challenge. I think basically what I've realized is that most people in Kenya and generally in East Africa, they assume that they know almost everything about construction, and therefore when they hear of a construction professional, they just see one as a masquerader because they assume they know everything about construction. The impact of that is that people don't see the value of engaging professionals. And because of that, of course, sometimes they do their own things and they even engage non-qualified people. And for sure, quality is affected. But even the clients themselves are to blame, the builders, the developers themselves.
Right.
They would want to pay the minimum cost for the highest quality.
Right.
It's not possible. You cannot hold the two ends of the stick and yet expect to get quality.
Right. On that note of quality, Andrew, let me throw this back to Demola, because of course we know that Nigeria was under the global spotlight after the collapse of a prominent church in Nigeria. Demola, I don't want to discuss the church, but I want to get a sense of whether there's been a renewed focus on improving the regulation and the quality of construction in Nigeria following that rather unfortunate incident.
Yes, actually, there's been quite a significant improvement in the administration of the process. The real problem really is that the standards are there, the system is there. However, the enforcement and the compliance is still where we have a process to deal with. So there's been improved oversight by the state government, who is legally empowered to monitor the development of housing across the different regions under their government. However, even the manufacturers of basic construction elements too have also taken this up by saying that minimum standards should be enforced in terms of concrete grade, whereby people demand for 42.5 grade or the 32.5 grade as a minimum standard for construction to manage possible events in the future.
Demola?
So the awareness is there right now.
Demola, what about skills? I mean, we have Andrew saying that the professionalization of the sector is an issue. What is the Nigerian experience when it comes to the actual skills for this sector? Are you battling with this issue, or are there sufficient skills?
The truth is we have a low-skill industry for low-skilled workers in Nigeria, and that's why there's been an influx from other West African countries. All right, but however, the like Andrew mentioned, people don't see the value in engaging professionals because obviously the focus really is the bottom line, which is how much are they making from these transactions. And the cost of professionals in the transaction may not be acceptable in terms of market pricing for some of these developments. So there's still a lot of work to be done in that area where people need to enforce.
Right.
The government needs to enforce the use of professionals, and we need to have more improved quality of low-skilled workers that can also help drive development in the sectors because there's been a massive debt of basic missing elements here in Nigeria.
Let's go back to Andrew. Andrew, let's talk about collusion. We've seen a lot of collusion in the construction sector in South Africa. What has been the Kenyan experience, and do you get a sense that the regulators are ahead of the game when it comes to regulating for collusion?
Did you say collusion, or what did you say?
Yes, I said collusion amongst the construction companies. We're seeing this as a significant problem in South Africa. Does it exist in Kenya?
Yes. Well, I think all societies basically are the same. You expect to find some malpractices. Sometimes you would hear malpractices in the construction industry, especially in the public sector. You hear of interests in the award of tenders and things like that. You hear of manipulation in the process of tendering. It's here and there, but you know, Kenya has taken a serious step towards fighting corruption. But you know, old habits die hard. So gradually, we hope that these things will be minimized or completely eliminated.
Right.
But for sure, there are instances of collusion. And of course, we all know the import of collusion, corruption. It leads to inferior quality.
Yes,
several
absolutely.
Yes.
Let me jump in there, Andrew. Let me throw it back to Damola, because on the one hand we have collusion, but Damola, we also have regulatory entities that are supposed to be looking out for this kind of activity, but most importantly, deterring these construction companies from participating in such activity in the first place. Do you get a sense that they have enough muscle and power in Nigeria to enforce some of the findings if collusion does take place?
Well, like Andrew mentioned, corruption is a big issue anywhere in the world, and Nigeria is also in that same band. They do have sufficient laws that can be enforced. However, the issue of corruption is also eating its roots as well, where the regulatory oversights are not properly enforced or monitored for these same reasons. So you would have different scenarios, but for companies that have minimum standards, such as much bigger construction companies, you hardly can even find details of construction history, test histories on sites. So it's a big issue here in Nigeria as well, and that's the reason why the government is looking to strengthen the department that has oversight over this issue in this industry, because it has to do with lives and property.
Damola, I want to stay with you, and I want us to talk very briefly about energy infrastructure. South Africa and Nigeria have similar challenges when it comes to power. Drawing from the South African example, would you say that Nigeria is investing sufficiently in the maintenance of its energy infrastructure?
The government has decided to hands off the process of generation and distribution in Nigeria, and that's giving the investors the opportunity to buy some of government assets in terms of power plants and also distribution networks. However, there's still a big issue that needs to be solved really quickly, which is the transmission network. Because obviously the transmission network is necessary to evacuate power from generating points all the way to distribution point.
Let's let's maybe take the focus back to Kenya as we begin to wrap the show. Andrew, I want us to talk about the impact of the falling oil price on continued investment in oil infrastructure. Do you get a sense that this is going to have a negative impact for future investment for oil exploration in Kenya?
I am not very sure whether I can competently say that it's going to have a negative impact on oil exploration because it is still pretty too early, but I doubt whether it will have any impact on oil exploration.
Of course, Of course, that's a space that we're going to be watching intently. But suffice to say, that's where we leave the show today. I think we've had a good comparison between the east and the west of the African continent when it comes to the construction sector, respectively. But perhaps the key takeaway there being from Nigeria that even with the existence of laws, regulators still seem to be lagging behind some of the dynamics of the sector. And in Nairobi, the key lesson we take from there is that the quality of construction is still questionable, and this is obviously on the basis of poor skills that underpin the sector. That's a big thank you to my guests for joining me this evening, Damola Akindolire, the General Manager at AlphaMed Property Development, and Andrew Mandera, the Chairman of the Institute of Quantity Surveyors of Kenya. For you at home, please remember that we do value your comments. The details to send your comments are on your screen. From myself and the Invest Africa team, it's goodbye for now.